and she from Keep Growing Detroit. I'll introduce all of the organizations that are involved, are part of our coalition in just a moment, and also our other co-founder, Tafir Rushton, is here in solidarity with us. So really appreciate them being here so we can talk about some of the exciting things that we are doing and how we can cultivate and create the changes that we want to see in the food sovereignty movement on our own, and just how we're utilizing a variety of different methods to kind of bring people to supporting the work. And of course, there's finances, but we want there to be other ways that people can also pour into the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund. So, hello, Shunasi. So good that you can make it. Um, and of course, so also whenever I do any of this work, I stand on, the shoulders of so many people who've come before me, my ancestors, my elders, and also I want to give a shout out to my dad who always supports me in a big way, and he is here. And he is here to support. So thanks. I'm gonna start sharing my screen so I can, let me make sure so you guys can see this great presentation. Let me know. Okay. I hope everybody, Danielle, am I good? Can you see, is the presentation
Yep.
up?
Yep, you're
Awesome.
all set.
So yes, so welcome. We are here to talk about what I like to call restorative economics, right? So the ecosystem, the economic system that is cultivated around the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund. And so quickly, for those of you who don't know all the details, we are the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund, and we are three local, long-standing urban farming organizations in the city of Detroit who came together on Juneteenth 2020 to start a process of rebuilding intergenerational land ownership for Detroit Black farmers. And our organizations are the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network, of which I am a member of the board. One of our other co-founders, Dr. Shakira Tyler, is the president of our board. And then we have Keep Growing Detroit. Again, Danielle and Tepfira are from Keep Growing Detroit, and also Oakland Avenue Urban Farm, which is really where we've held a lot of our, if you're local, that's where we've held a lot of our events. It's where we had our Juneteenth celebration, where we kicked off our second year of fundraising. So last year, we started fundraising again around on Juneteenth, and we're thinking we would raise $5,000 for some Black farmers to get them on land. And we were able to raise well beyond that amount. And so we knew, how important this work was, and we're just so astounded to see the grassroots support that came to meet us, right? That met us where we were in terms of how important this work is. And so we are doing another year. We got 30 farmers on land. Last year, we're continuing to work on getting them through the land acquisition process. And this year, the goal is to get 40 farmers on land. So we are utilizing a variety of tactics that I'll talk about to bring that to fruition. So when we're talking about restorative economy, right? Like, what is the impact of what we're talking about? And, the work that we're doing in stewarding this fund, we're breaking intergenerational cycles, right, of Black farmland displacement. And that's been a national problem, like not just a Detroit problem. And it's been intergenerational, ever since Juneteenth, ever since 1865, the end of the Civil War, when Black folks first were able to own land and to acquire land and to start farming. There has been consistent issues with Black farmland displacement ever since then. And so we want to replace that with intergenerational Black farmland ownership, right? So we're flipping it on its head and bringing together different methods and things that we can do so that we can reverse that cycle, right? And so we can we'll talk a little bit about how much farmland, Black farmers were able to amass amongst astonishing odds against them, and kind of where we've come from there and where we hope we'll be going in the future. Ooh, hold on, let's go, next slide, there we go. And so what does this restorative economy look like? I know this looks like a lot of things, but I'll touch on a number of things in terms of bringing together different methods of support beyond finances, right? So we do obviously have cause box that's active. You can go to our website at detroitblackfarmer.com to make a financial donation. But there are some other ways that you can also support us. And so we want to talk about those. Creative support, land donations. That's a big thing that we want to talk about. Again, co-conspirators, equipment and tools, mini fundraisers, volunteering. So all of these things, again, are essential in cultivating and creating a container, around, the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund and around intergenerational Black farmland ownership, and starting the process of wanting to see this move forward from this generation on, making sure that Black farmers can continue to farm, moving into, the next generation, the next century, and just reversing some of the Black farmland displacement that we've seen I see some folks in the chat too. I don't want to make sure I don't miss anything. Oh, great. No, that's things about how to donate and how to support. So thank you, Danielle, for keeping up with that. And I will go to the next slide. Okay. I did want to talk first. So, some of you may know I'm also a constitutional law professor and Howard University. Shout out to any Howard folks that are in the room. So I did want to talk because it's in the media a lot now about the $5 billion for debt relief and grants education that was provided for by Congress for, it's not just Black farmers even, this is for BIPOC farmers, right? And so when we talk about why do we need restorative economies, why do we need the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund, what are some of the reasons that this has come about? I think it's important to provide some legal context and some historical context. So I'm going to do a little bit of that and just talk about, why you're hearing in the media, you heard about this $5 billion that Black farmers were going to get, and everybody was really excited. And then just now, some of the federal courts in the United States have stopped that, right? So there have been some lawsuits that have been filed in different states that are now stopping that $5 billion for grant relief going to Black farmers. And so why? And first, I want to, just lift up Tracy McCurdy, who is another attorney who's in this work, who does this work, and she was talking about just how phenomenal this $5 billion going to Black farmers really is, and it's a milestone in Black agrarian history. We've never received federal legislation to undergird or support Black economic wealth creation and land ownership. It's been hostility, animus, criminality against the Black farmer to erode the gains of land ownership that came through our own determination and grit, right? So, and that's a really good article. I have a list of references at the end of my slides. I'm sure we're going to make those slides available to you so you can read that article. So, and then again, New York Times article that talked about the debt relief program. And the agriculture secretary talked about, how pandemic relief money that was received in the agriculture sector was disproportionately provided to white-owned farms, and that some of this $5 billion was meant to kind of to rebalance that, are the words that he used, right? And that also before that, right, the end of the Trump administration, there were $23 billion that went out to farmers all over the United States, but most of that ended up going to larger and wealthier farmers who, for a lot of reasons that we'll talk about, are disproportionately white, right? So there have been these, and that's been kind of the saga of the Black farmer in America. There's been, all of these different opportunities, whether it's, for, homestead acts to get land, opportunities to get grants, or opportunities to get loans to support their farms, and all of that has not been provided for on as consistent as a basis for Black farmers. And so these kinds of programs are really important, and it's something that, again, like Ms. McCurdy said, we haven't seen before. So this kind of a debt relief program for Black farmers to address some of the debt that they're in is miraculous. And so we really want to see it move forward. And it's unfortunate that the courts are stopping it now. I need to move my screen because I can't see what I'm going to say. White farmers in lawsuits nationwide are challenging this as a violation of the Equal Protection Clause, right, of either the 5th or 14th Amendments. I'm not going to get too deep into this, but I did want to just touch on some things in terms of, because we hear this term a lot, like what does it mean when something is constitutional? And to be constitutional, the Supreme Court has said race-based laws and policies, right? So this is a race-based law. It's a policy that is based on being a socially disadvantaged farmer. And so for us, I say BIPOC, right? But socially disadvantaged farmers includes Black farmers, Indigenous farmers, minority farmers of color, right? And so again, it's not just for Black farmers, but Black farmers have had such problems getting help and assistance from the government at the same rates as other farmers that it's been really big in trying to make sure that they're a part of this. And these provisions, any race-based provision has to, the Supreme Court says it has to be narrowly tailored to serve a compelling government interest, right? And the way they've applied these standards, it over time, unfortunately, has made it much easier to prove reverse racial discrimination, right? Which is what some of the white farmers are alleging now, and much harder to remedy past discrimination, right? So it's been well established that, you know, Black farmers have experienced discrimination at the hands of the USDA, and that a part of this $5 billion package is to remedy that past discrimination. But the way the laws have been interpreted, it hasn't really played out in being able to actually provide that remedy. And so that's a part of why I want to talk about this, because it's important for us to create our own economies and ecosystems, because the legal system really is not set up to remedy the kind of past racial discrimination that Black farmers have experienced. And so as we, you know, wait and push forward with the law, you kind of, sometimes you have to move forward and the law catches up with you, right? And so that's kind of the space that I think we need to be operating from, you know, really trying to move forward and create what we'd like to see. And, you know, then the law can catch up with us eventually. But sometimes, you know, these remedying past racial discrimination is a difficult, it's kind of difficult. Yes, I see this in the chat, Shinasi, thank you. Economic violence, it's really what it is. So I'm gonna, oh, I keep forgetting I need to go to this arrow. Okay. So I did read the opinion of the judge that did stop the debt relief. I wanted to read it and get a sense of what it was talking about. And she even said, it's undeniable and notably uncontested that the USDA had a dark history of past discrimination against minority farmers. So this is not new, and it's well established, it's well proven. But then when they talk about, in the opinion, they talk about how, you know, the law is based on, again, it's based on your status as a BIPOC farmer who has a particular kind of loan from the USDA, but that, you know, some of the statistical discrepancies presented by the USDA, right, in terms of why they're saying they want to put this legislation forward for Black farmers and for BIPOC farmers, can be explained by non-race related factors, right? So what that means is they're saying that the grants and the debt relief and the other things that went to other farmers before, right? The COVID relief, all of those funds that went to other farmers before are based on farm size and crops grown, not based on race. And so they say that because the $5 billion debt relief is based on race, that is a part of what makes it potentially unconstitutional. And so let me go to the next slide. Again, I don't want to bore you too much with this stuff, but this concept is interesting to me. But to allow, and so the court says this a lot, right? To allow the perpetuation of discrimination, like to solve discrimination with discrimination is basically what they say. They say, well, you know, you want to remedy past discrimination against Black farmers, but you can't do it by limiting things to Black farmers, which is strange because, you know, the Black farmers are the ones that have been negatively impacted. And so why wouldn't the law account for, you know, being able to address that directly? But most of the time the court says that that's unconstitutional, which is very strange to me. And, you know, again, the constitutional right to equal protection guarantees classifications will be permitted only with the most exact connection between justification and classification, right? And that makes it hard, you know, to even get to a point where you're proving, where you have the kind of evidence that you need to prove that there is past racial discrimination and that this is the best way to remedy it, right? And I'll talk just briefly about the 14th Amendment itself, right? Because these are challenges based on the 14th Amendment. And so the 14th Amendment was supposed to be enacted to protect freed Black people, right? But ultimately, they couldn't get it through the Reconstruction Congress that way. The Reconstruction Congress wouldn't agree. The Southern Congress people would not agree, and so it got widened, to be a general guarantee of life, liberty, and property for all persons, right? So I always find it interesting when we're talking about reverse discrimination that the 14th Amendment was meant specifically to protect Black people post-emancipation, post-Civil War, and like has ended up being completely gutted and not really used for that purpose at all, which is unfortunate, or at least not in the way that I would think it was intended to be. And the 14th Amendment also affirmed the constitutionality of the Civil Rights Act of 1866, right? In the Civil Rights Act of 1866, that was actually the law that gave freed Blacks the right to do a number of things in our, political capitalist society, right? The right to sign contracts, the right to sue, but most importantly, it gave Black people the right to inherit, purchase, lease, sell, and hold and convey real and personal property. So that's key, right? So that was the beginning of Black farmland ownership, right? Or if in the legal sense, right? Like in the sense of when America, the government started to recognize the ability of Blacks to have their own farmland, to purchase their own farmland. But overall at the time, this is back again in the 1860s, 1870s, this is Reconstruction. The 14th Amendment and the Civil Rights Act of 1866 were not really enforced in the courts. So, even if Black people were able to go to courts and file cases to support themselves, they weren't, the judges in the South they weren't having it. Like they weren't using the 14th Amendment or the Civil Rights Act of 1866 to protect Black people in the way that they should have. And so that is what led to some of that widespread land displacement that we'll talk a little bit more about. Again, things like the Black codes, right? So all of these Black codes started to be enacted, particularly in the southern states, that stopped, the right of movement, if people were, unemployed, loitering, all that kind of stuff that we still see today. Those were enacted as Black codes, right, to stop Black people from being able to move freely in the newly freed South. So I always think, again, I think that's interesting when we're talking about the 14th Amendment, that it's not, right, Black people are still vying to vote today, absolutely. So I'm going to go to the next slide. And again, if you have a question, drop it in the chat. I'm not going to talk about these cases right now, but what I'm going to talk about, right, some of the historical context. Just if we remember, the most foundational aspect of freedom in America hasn't always been land ownership, right? So before Black farmers were able to own land, even, freed Blacks, escaped Blacks, indigenous people, the ability to legally, own land has been a big problem in terms of being able to do this kinds of things that you like to do. Being a landowner is connected to a lot of other things, right? Like when you're a landowner, you're on the voter rolls, right? Like when you're on the voter rolls, you're on the jury rolls, right? So if you don't have land, you might not be able to vote. You might not be able to serve on a jury, right? And so of course we know that now, but back then this is a big, problem in terms of it was, keeping people from being able to be engaged in our society in a particular way. And keeping in mind, the first 12 generations of Blacks in America made a forced but continued contribution of what is called unpaid labor to the infrastructure and economy of what would become America, right? So like this was not built, it was built for free on our backs, right? And so, this is unpaid labor for an extended period of time, right? So think about that. Think about like when the Declaration of Independence was written in 1776, right? July 4th is coming up this weekend. Slavery had already been occurring for 157 years, or like 6 generations, right? So, and then 20 years later, right, we're talking about the Constitution. So there's been the Revolutionary War, England, we're free from England, we're free from Britain. We want to create our own country, right? But so by the time that's even happening, this is 177 years of slavery. So slavery at this point is older than any of the people that were in the room writing the Constitution. And so think about in terms of like their mindset, think about in terms of when they're writing these documents and when they're making these policies, they were thinking about slavery as something that was normal, something that was consistent, and something that they didn't necessarily see ending anytime soon. And so that really provided a framework for the legal challenges that we're still having today, again, in terms of trying to remedy this past discrimination that started all this time ago. And at that time, in the Constitution, of course, you had the 3/5 clause, which limited Blacks to and Indigenous people to congressional apportionment, right? So we'll count you for the purpose of figuring out how many people are going to be in the House of Representatives from your state, but we are not going to. Yes, right, and that's true too. Thanks. That essentially that labor by Blacks was forced labor, right? That's true too. Thanks, guys. I continue to add things in the chat because I want people. I know it's kind of heavy, but I think that it's really important when we provide. I think it's important to provide context to our work, and then I got this actually from, again, Dr. Shakira Tyler, who is another co-founder of the Detroit Black Farm and Land Fund. So just looking at, even at the height of Black farmland ownership, right? So it was up to about 15 or 16 million acres is what it was estimated to be. And it has dropped significantly since then. That was the height, and that was between 1910 and 1920, when Black people, amidst, again, Black codes, lynching, sharecropping, all of these things that they were fighting against, particularly in the South. Blacks were able to acquire 15 million or so acres of farmland that they could grow on, and that they could support their families, support their communities, and build communities around farms, right? Those of us who grow our own food and those of us who are farmers know that farmers are an essential part of any ecosystem. And so, being able to farm and grow food created, that sense of freedom, right? It gave that sense of freedom that Black farmers didn't really have back, again, even in Reconstruction at the turn of the century. And so, when we're reading about the Black farmer aid, right, when we're reading about what the courts are doing, when we're talking about how frustrated nationwide Black farmers are about not having the opportunity to get some of the support that they need to protect their investment and to protect their farms and to keep their land. I mean, so many Black farmers have been, their USDA loans, they haven't been able to pay them, or there have been bad terms, and so that leads to a loss of land ownership, because then you don't have your farm anymore. And so it's not just about getting money, right? It's about being able to stay on your farm. So this is all important. And I like to, when we talk about whether things are constitutional or not, I just always like to remind people of this, right? Like maybe the government that was created in the 1700s, wasn't the best government ever, right? And so when we talk about, whether things are constitutional or not, sometimes we have to remember and go back to the framework of what the founders were working with, and the framework of what America looked like at that time. And a lot of times I think about how I can't imagine that the framers would ever be thinking about a government where there were freed slaves, like voting women, like, all these things that they were not thinking about, or all these things that were not really in their thought process. And also the amount of people that now are a part of America. And so, I think that it was so small then, it was much smaller then than it is now. And so, the government is, sometimes we can't always rely on, at least in the short term, right? I think sometimes in the long term, we're able to say, we want to work and we want to push in the legal system to make sure that the laws are reflecting and repairing this past discrimination, but we also have to be doing things on our own to move that forward, right? And so I just wanted to provide some historical context, because I think that helps, make that clear. And I think this was a really good article that I read too, and it kind of helps segue into talking about some of the more specific ways that we can build this ecosystem that we want to have to support Black farmland ownership, and particularly what we're doing here in Detroit with the Black Farm and Land Fund. This woman wrote a really, really interesting article about her family and how her family owned slaves, and how it was something that she wanted to know more about. And I think that's a really good point of reference for, those of us who come to this work, and who say, those of us who are again co-conspirators, allies, people who want to understand, why things are the way that they are. Like, it's not necessarily by accident, and kind of doing some deep digging. And I think the most important thing about this quote is that it talks about how her family has owned that same land where they owned slaves for more than 150 years, right? And so when we're thinking about Black farmers, we're thinking about Black farmland ownership, like 150 years of farmland ownership for Black farmers, and likely for BIPOC farmers as a whole in America. Like that's almost unheard of, right? Because there's all these breaks in the land ownership that continue to happen. Whether, our co-founder Jerry talks about how her grandfather in Tennessee was literally run off of his land, and then the next day they came up to Detroit, and they were a part of the Great Migration. And that was her story is not isolated. Her grandfather's story is not isolated. And so there were all these land holdings that just got given up because of racial violence, sometimes because of shoddy business dealings, right? Bad contracting, all of these things that all contributed to what ended up being the Great Migration. And of course, Detroit was a big recipient of a lot of folks who came from the Great Migration, who came here specifically because of some of the problems with, Black farmland ownership that had been seen. And I'm gonna check the chat. Oh, I see there's some stuff in the chat. I want to see. No, I'm glad I don't see any questions, but I just wanted to. And I'm gonna stop sharing this for just a moment because I wanted to show a video if I could. But thank you all for, let me make sure this is the right slide. Yeah, okay. So this is a really good, I lost there we go. I need to be able to see you guys. And I want to show, so this is a video that I saw before the Black Farmer Land Fund launched this year, and I thought it was really powerful. And it tells, and so this segues into the first thing I want to talk about when we talk about restorative economics, and we talk about what are some of the things that we can do to support organizations like the Black Farmer Land Fund, and support Black farmers, support intergenerational Black farmland ownership. It's creativity, right? It's tapping into creatives, right? Like there are so many creative, I'm definitely a creative person. There's so many creative folks all over the world that, utilize their creativity towards good, right? And that think about, how can I utilize this talent or this skill that I have to uplift this really powerful cause. And so this video, it is by an artist that I really respect, Damian Marley. And it's a video about another Black land loss situation, not in Detroit, but in Florida. And I just think it's a really good, and it tells the story. So definitely listen to the song, but watch the screen too, because it tells the story more specifically of this Black beach in Florida that the city wanted to, use for development and change, that had been utilized, for a variety of minority communities when they couldn't go to other beaches, right? And so it tells, I think, a really powerful story. And I think the video shows the kinds of things that creatives can be doing to support these causes. So it is called Life is a Circle. Oh, hold on. Let me see. Let me make sure I got you guys have the volume. There we go. Let me make sure that you guys can hear. Because Black people rarely had access to music.
Life is a circle that goes round and round. Mine's not a circus, and I'm not your clown. Always with us now. It's always with me, y'all. God bless us all, each and every one of us. He's always with us now, so I pray. Life is a circle, goes round and round. Oh, mine's not a circus, I'm not your clown. Some people with us, some with their frown. Still I know my purpose is to share what we found. Some people insist to wear others down. But all will bear witness unto who wears the crown. Good God, oh. Good God is always with us now, always with I now. Would never let us down, never let I down. Is always with us now, always with I now. Would never let us down, never let I down. Oh, time has no master, we're all in suspense. Jah don't run no border, no wall nor no fence. So crime and disaster is all in pretense. Man too out of order, too much ill intent. Oh, oh, when will the starters make way for the bench? And when will the martyrs get justice for their flesh? Good God, oh. Good God is always with us now, it's always with I now. It's always with me, y'all. It's always with I, y'all. Would never let me down, never let I down. It's always with us, y'all. Always with I now.
All right. Thank you guys. So I thought that was really cool. I loved how it told that story. And I think that that story again is like, oops, hold on. Let's turn that off. I think that story is all too common. And especially it's something that we deal with too. We're dealing with in Detroit in terms of development, right? Like development and developers coming in and trying to kind of reclaim these places that in many instances, especially in the South, were, were Black spaces that developed because, of separate but equal, right? And because they, Blacks couldn't be in certain other places. And so they developed these places for themselves. And then those places get either shut down, or those places get, speculative development is trying to take them over. It's all too common, right? Yes, stolen. Thank you, Mama Shinasi. Strong language. But yeah, and so I thought that was a great way to segue into how creatives can contribute to this movement. And I'm going to reshare my presentation because I want to talk a little. Here we go. And let me get back into presentation mode. Oops. Now we're back at the beginning. Well, that's okay. I know you guys liked all my slides from before, all these words. All right. Yeah, he just said, privileged to be able to share it with the world, right? And so one of the, so this is it's about creatives, but it's also about a land donation. So one of the land we received last year, one land donation. So we're raising money, for Black farmers to contribute to getting them on land. And we get this message like, well, I have this plot of land that I could donate. And we were like, what? And so turns out this is to the Flower House. So the Flower House used to be on a lot in Hamtramck. It was a art installation. So it was a broken down house that was going to be demolished. And it was, she purchased the lot for $500, turned it into an art installation, filled it with flowers. She's like a floral artist, and she grows flowers. She has a flower farm. And so this was what she did with it before. And then it got demoed. They repurposed, all of the materials that were a part of the demolition. And so it was just a lot. And so what she was going to do with it was just turn it into a park for that community. She didn't necessarily live in that community. She had, just purchased the space to do the art installation. But when she heard about the Black Farmer Land Fund, she said she felt a personal responsibility to the community and she had a willingness to transmute that privilege into restorative justice, right? And so she said this would be great in the hands of a Black farmer. And of course, Hamtramck is a part of our service area. So we service right now Hamtramck, Highland Park, which are also within Detroit city limits, as well as the city of Detroit. And so she donated outright this land and we were able to place it with a Detroit Black farmer. Ebony is on here with us, and you don't have to, if you want to talk, you can. I would love for you to, yeah, I see your heart. I would love, I was able to go to the space and introduce them and get the party started. And so it's been great for Ebony too. I'll talk in a little bit about, the land acquisition process can be arduous and it can be long. And again, so we're farmers. And so there's a certain kind of window we have for a growing season. And so time can be important. And it's really, oh, thank you so much, Danielle. I see something else that you put in the chat. And so it's really important, in terms of timing, to be able to get on the land and get a soil test and make sure the soil is good to grow and start moving. And so Ebony's been able to do that. She's been able to get on the land. Her and Lisa Woud is the artist who did the land donation. And so I have her information also in the references at the end. And her that Instagram account, Flower House Detroit, will also be utilized to support the Black Farmer Land Fund and the rest of our campaign. But it speaks to, the power of thinking about, do I have underutilized land, or do I have land that could be utilized for something else? It could be turned into a growing space. You can give it to us and donate it to the Black Farmer Land Fund, and we can do something beautiful with this. It was a really powerful story about how our work is unfolding, right? Something that we didn't even necessarily expect. And so we do really want people that maybe you don't have money to donate, but maybe you have a plot that you got that you're not using, you don't know what to do with, you need some support with it. And so the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund can definitely help with that. I see, Dad, did you need to come off mute? I don't think so. Oh, there you go. Okay, I don't know if anybody else has any questions at this point, but I want to move to the next slide. There we go. Yes, why land donations are game changers, right? So on the left, it's from our annual report, and it talks about just the process of getting, a parcel in the city of Detroit from the Detroit Land Bank. And so there are these 5 stages that we've identified, and some of these stages can take a while. We have 7 folks, or I think it's now up to 8 folks, Tefir, I'm not sure if that's accurate, but who are officially own their land, and they are, moving forward. They have begun their growing season, and they're doing what they need to do. But there are a bunch of other people that are still in these other phases, and it's just as any homeowners, landowners know, the land acquisition process can just take a while, and so a land donation can help bypass some of those steps, right? If somebody already owns the land, and it's just a question of turning it over, and there's some paperwork that can be drawn up that can move that along rather quickly, as opposed to the land bank process, right? And second, it's a strong land security interest, right? I mean, if the person who is donating the land owns the land outright, it's much easier to transfer that to someone else, and then it's safe to begin planting and working as the land acquisition process goes, right? So Ebony was able to get on the land and look at it and start moving forward, without necessarily having all the paperwork in hand, and not having to worry about, are people, is the city gonna, sell this land out from under me because I don't own it, right? Like, what, how am I going to be able to start my growing season and do the things that I need to do on this land until, as I wait for move things forward. Oh, Ebony, yes, if you'd like to talk to us about this, I would love to hear what you have to say.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All
Ebony's
right.
our farmer that got the land donation. So how's it going?
It's going great. It's going great. I wish I was outside. I'm still in the office right now. But this was an amazing opportunity. And Lisa was the perfect person. And I say the perfect person because, when Aaron and I were there and when we met Lisa, she had pretty much a whole list of different resources. So since she's been through the process of, working with different people, and she also, is familiar with the land as well as people around, she was able to pretty much pass on her resources, which has been extremely beneficial. And like Aaron said, we were able to, so I have a co-leader, who is like my mom. And so she pretty much just gave us to go to work on the land. And so that's what we've been able to do, versus like Aaron said, the land bank, where, you have to twiddle your thumbs for 8 months, 10 months, until you purchase the land, and which is frustrating me because I had another site, which I had to pretty much twiddle my thumbs for many months. But luckily with the property we have in Hamtramck, we've been able to pretty much just tackle it head on. And Lisa has been supportive with giving us additional resources. Yeah. Oh, I didn't say what we're doing. So we're doing a children's garden. So it's not like, a typical farm, but it's a children's garden. So we've been putting our heads together to really have it be as creative as it can possibly be for, our little people.
And that was cool too, because like Lisa had been in the community, and so she knew that there were all these kids who live in the surrounding area, and so that it just meshed so well, with your perspective and with the thing what you wanted to do with it. And so there are so many folks that are still waiting they don't want to start anything on the land because they want to make sure that it all goes through. And so a land donation can kind of help you bypass at least some of those things, so that you can just get started and get your hand in the ground. Farmers and gardeners, we want to get our hands in the ground. That's the most important thing. There's all this paperwork and stuff you got to do sometimes, but that's the most important thing, is getting your hands in the ground. So I'm so glad. Thank you, Ebony, for joining us from the office to talk about that. I know Lisa will join us. She is in California running a flower conference, but I know she and I are scheduled, and maybe you too, Ebony, scheduled to talk about this on the radio as well, because we want to make sure that people know that this is something that they can consider. If there's land that they're not utilizing, please consider a land donation to the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund. So that is an awesome way that, again, we can be pushing forward what we want to do, and not necessarily, we know that the government has like their things going on with the land bank, and they're moving at their pace, but we can also move at our pace, and we can move things forward to continue to, develop these restorative economics that we want to develop. So the land donation was big for us last year, and so we'd love to see some more of those this year. And hold on, there we go. And now I want to talk about Danielle. So Danielle is our lead co-conspirator. So we are proud at the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund to be all Black women led. So, again, myself, Tefira, Mom Shakira, who I see is joining us too. So I want to lift her up, another one of our co-founders, and Jerry Hebron. So we are Black women led, but we couldn't just do this work ourselves. And as a coalition, it's just us, like, doing all the things that we're moving forward. We have everything was moving so quickly, especially last year. And Danielle came on and stepped up to be our co-conspirator. And when we say co-conspirator, a lot of times we say ally, but I think co-conspirator is a much better term. And again, I think I actually got this from Mama Shakira. So thanks again to Mama Shakira for this. But co-conspirators are those who are willing to step into, whether it's a particular role or a space, and challenge the things that are going against creating, whether in this instance we're talking about Black farmland ownership, right? Like, we have to be willing to disrupt the systems that are holding back the Black farmer land ownership that we want to see in the city of Detroit. And so you can be an ally and you can support, but when you really you step into your work, you bring your full self to your work, and you support, trying to just kind of weave in there and break down the systems that are stopping things from moving in the way we want them to move. Like, those are co-conspirators, right? Like the people that are putting, that are willing to step up and do a little more to support the work. And so our leadership team would not be complete without Danielle. And, we have so many other, co-conspirators as well, but she's the lead, right? So this is a picture of us on the left at Eastern Market Brewing Company. I'll talk about what they did for the Detroit Black Farmland Fund in a second. And then she was flipping burgers at our Juneteenth celebration, right? And just, always willing to step in and support, and so she is an essential part of our leadership team. And co-conspirators, I think, are an essential part of any leadership team, like making sure that we have, folks who, and also, non-Black folks, right? So there have been a couple of times, and, if you want to talk about it, I can, or you can, but yes, please. There have been times that it's important to have a non-Black perspective or a non-Black voice. And so I'd love for you to talk about that.
Thanks. Yeah, Aaron. It's yeah, we there are times we've been in conversations, and like, yes, it's really important. Like, yes, this is all Black women led. And then in my particular role, like, yes, I have this like expertise as doing like fundraising and data kind of stuff in my role at Keep Growing Detroit. But I think it's really important to like I am not driving the bus. I am like, I'm there to support whatever that looks like. And I think often when people talk about being a co-conspirator or even like allyship, it's like, I have these great skills. Let me tell you how to do your thing. And like, that's not what this is about. I think a long time ago, someone talked to me about like steward leadership, and explaining that as like, you are being invited to walk in someone else's garden. And that's how I thanks. That's how I enter into this work. Like, I was invited into this work. Like, we launched all this like together, but I was invited into it. But I'm not telling anyone else how to do stuff. I'm not leading it that way. I just say like, hey, what else do you need? How else can I be of service to you to make this happen? And in addition to being a co-conspirator, it's really like trying to, you're in it together. You're a partner in the work, but you're not, it's like second in command, you know, and that's okay. I think often with, especially in talking about like being non-black within this type of work or anything where it's like, okay, here's Danielle on Juneteenth. What's she gonna do? You know, what does that really mean? It's not about me. It doesn't have to ever be about me, even though like there are things that I do with this work. It's a lot of work, but I don't need the praise. I don't, because it's never about the work that I'm doing. You know, it's really being led by, and that's like what makes the values of Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund so clear and so strong. Uh, because it's led by those values. So I think often when people are like, how do I enter into like all of this work, and how do I like when I say Black Lives Matter and all of that stuff, when I want to do all that, how do I step in to help? But you really, sometimes what that really just means is like, here's my financial donation, and that's so needed, you know. That's what people need. And if that, and if it's like, okay, if I have this platform, how can I reach back and say, hey, you step up on the platform, let me pass the mic to you so that you can do it too, you know. That's kind of what I see myself as. So thanks,
I
Aaron.
I love that, walking in someone else's garden. Oh, like sorry, that touched me in like a really special way. So I just, yeah, we could not do, what we do. I mean, Danielle just really helps to lift up our work. And then we also, I love that you said stewardship too. That's important because we see our work as stewardship, right? Like we are, raising awareness and collecting funds and helping Black farmers in the land acquisition process, but we are stewards of our communities, right? Like we're stewards of the organizations that we're a part of. And so we're, I mean, like in that sense, like we are moving forward, this work that we've said we want to do for our community. And it's an honor, like it's certainly a privilege. It's not a right, and so I'm really glad that you lifted that up. And I'm so glad that we got to meet and do this work together. So thank you so much for everything that you do. And like, even now, like you're running the chat for me. Otherwise, I would be like, ah. So I really appreciate you. And then co-conspirators are just a really important part, and making sure that you're being a co-conspirator, right? And that you're, whether that means stepping to the side and uplifting, the voices of those, who often are in the back and don't get listened to, and so it's really important that we have folks surrounding us and doing our work, that understand that and that bring that to us. So thank you, Danielle. We've been very, very blessed, to have you doing this work with us. And then why can I not see the arrow? I'm just gonna try to go to the next slide, guys. I'm gonna get this together before it's over. And then equipment and tools. So direct donation of equipment and tools. And so many, especially so urban farmers, need equipment that they can't afford to purchase outright, right? Like things, because we have, people that have big plots, and so they need like tractors and, and big tillers and these kind of large scale things that we only associate with big farms. But they still need those kinds of things. And then also, how are you gonna secure it? Like, is it going to get stolen? Like, so there are all these things that we're thinking about in terms of, equipment and tools, and how to make sure that we're providing all of the urban farmers that, we're getting them on the land, but we're also supporting them with the tools that they might need to be successful with the work, to succeed with their particular projects, right? So our application process is going to open up next week. And so we'll accept more applications for, again, hopefully 40 more farmers next year. And a part of what we do is we ask everybody, what's your project? What's your idea? Like Ebony talked about, her project was, a children's garden, right? And so we want to make sure that people have the things that they need to bring all of that to fruition. And then urban farming in particular, there's more labor involved to some extent, right? So you're in an urban setting. So, sometimes you test your soil and there's like lead and other things in the soil. You have to do like soil remediation, to getting large equipment from one place to the other, you need an extra vehicle. These kinds of things can take up a significant portion of time or significant portion of your day. And again, as farmers, time is important, in terms of getting things done at a certain time, getting your seeds in the ground at a certain time, making sure that certain plants are planted at, with, companion planting. All these things matter. And so, the donation of equipment and tools, even lightly used things, right? Lightly used things, storage sheds, things like that farmers need, that, we may be able to get from people who are not utilizing them, underutilizing them. You have extras. So those are important things. And so many of our farmers, they reach out to us and say, well, is there a tractor? Is there a tiller we can use? And so we want to be able to provide those things, for our farmers and help them so that they don't necessarily have to acquire it themselves. And then, of course, if we can have access to it, then we can make sure that the different farms are able to utilize it. So that's a really big piece too, is the donation and availability of equipment and tools, for the Detroit Black Farm and Land Fund. Oop, I haven't checked the chat in a while. Okay. Oh, nice. Yes. And so there are some collectives that have a tool equipment share too. I know there's one place in Detroit and we've worked with them. They are really great. I think it's called East Warren Tool Library. So they are doing some really cool things with some of our farmers. And we want to continue, making sure that, I have our map. I'll have to show our map, but there are different kind of pockets around the city of where the farms are. And so making sure that everyone in each region kind of has access to these things would be amazing. And it would really help with productivity too. So equipment and tools are also something that Black farmers can use and that people can provide. And next slide. And then there were some mini fundraisers, right? So okay, let's say you really want to donate to the Black Farm and Land Fund. You might not have land or equipment or tools, but and maybe you don't have a lot of money, but maybe that you have a way or you have an opportunity that you can raise some money that then you can give to the Detroit Black Farm and Land Fund. And some folks have done that this year, and the results have been awesome. So Eastern Market Brewing Company, we brewed Abolition Stout. Okay, so Abolition Imperial Stout. Okay, so, and it's very good. There's some in my fridge right now. I don't even really like beer, but it's good. And you can see the really dark hops over there. I'm going to play this little snippet. I hope you guys can hear, of Danielle talking about.
This is going to be a tropical imperial stout with toasted coconut and blackstrap molasses. It has roots through the West Indies and West Africa. And an imperial stout just means it's got higher ABV. Okay.
It was fun. We got to go to Eastern Market Brewing Company, and on the far right is Kaya. So again, this is a way that creatives are involved. Kaya is a local Black artist who was able to contribute by making the label for the can. So again, this is an ecosystem. So this was a bunch of different things coming together. It was Black art. It was, beer. And then we had a big launch the night before Juneteenth at Eastern Market Brewing Company, which is obviously in Eastern Market. We collaborated with some folks, the Brews Brothers, who are really cool. They are a Black beer podcast folks. So Black craft beer podcast. And so we were able to all come together, and this beer is still, as far as I know, on sale at Eastern Market Brewing Company, Abolitionist Imperial Stout. It is available. There's also a broadleaf collaboration that we did. Ooh, Danielle, what is it called?
Like Purposeful Minds, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a couple of beers. Eastern Market Brewing Company was like, we want to support you guys with the proceeds we want you to help us make this beer, and then we'll send you the proceeds, which is really cool way to support the Black Farm and Land Fund. And there are some next.
This is gonna be
again. Hold on. Let me go to the next slide. I tell you, I'm gonna get this together before it's over. There we go. And then two others, which I thought were cool. Detroit City Distillery, right down the street from Eastern Market Brewing Company. They made this little drink, the cocktail. Excuse me, it's not a drink, it's a cocktail. And also, again, local artists, local Black artists put the art on there, and they're selling it. And they're giving us the proceeds, which is really cool. And then there's a place in Farmington, which is outside of Detroit, very cool called Plus Skateboarding. And so out of nowhere, they did a raffle. They raffle off skateboarding shoes sometimes, and they raffled off skateboarding shoes, and they were like, we're going to give proceeds to the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund. They sent us like $2,000 from this raffle. I mean, so it was totally unexpected again, but it was a great way, for them to, again, it was a part of their business model. They said they do the raffles like once a month. And there are a lot of businesses that we're seeing now, especially in the Detroit area, that have a specific, they say, well, during a specific time frame, we're going to support this organization. And so there are a couple other organizations over the summer that are also going to be donating a portion of their proceeds to the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund, and that are going to be making and creating things. So we're really excited. I think we're also going to be continuing to sell some cool t-shirts, I think. So we will keep y'all posted on that. Awesome. I see Danielle put information in the chat about the beers, so you can purchase those and support the Black Farmer Land Fund that way. So who knew you could get a raffle ticket for shoes, or get a cocktail, or get beer and support Black farmers? Like, that's dope. Okay. And I think, let me see. Oh, yep. And that's I'm not gonna go to that slide yet. So I'm gonna stop the share for just a moment. And the last few things I just wanted to talk about. Good. I think we're doing pretty good on time. We'll have some time for questions if people have any questions. But volunteering. So another thing that we have been working with a lot of folks on is setting them up so that they can volunteer. Again, we have 30 farms and so across the city, and a lot of those people were either already growing on the land that they're now trying to purchase, right? So that was a big part of starting the Black Farmer Land Fund. It was because there were people who were growing on land who they couldn't afford to buy, but they were just so committed to their communities and like really committed to making sure like they could grow food. And so, they want to be able to be land secure, right? In addition to the work that they do in providing food security for themselves, for their families, and for their communities. And so there are a lot of different farms around the city, even if they haven't gotten all the way through the land acquisition process, they still are working, they still need help, they still need support. And so you can always check our Facebook and our Instagram. We're trying to post every week when the different farms have volunteer opportunities, how to contact them, and how to, just get out there with them and support. And so we want to make sure that people know that that's an important part of the work too. Get a work party together. The folks at Eastern Market Brewing Company, they said, hey, there's a group of us, like we want to volunteer to farm, like set us up and help us volunteer to farm. And so we can do that. So we can get a group of you together. I know I want to get some of the little ones together and take them to some of the farms. I have a 4-year-old. And so I want to get some of the little ones together and get them to some of the farms so that they can volunteer and they can support. So that's a big way that you can also support the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund. And then finally, spreading the word, right? If you can't do any of those other things, right? If you can't, your money isn't looking right now. I know how that is. You don't necessarily have land or anything else to donate. But what you can do is share, on social media. Most people have social media these days, or email, email it to your family, put it in, I put it in my family WhatsApp. I was like, hey, I'm doing this thing with the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund. It's a really great cause. I'd love for you guys to donate and support and share the work. Because that was really what was so shocking and affirming to us last year, was just how far and wide our message spread across the country and across the world. There were people from everybody, from everywhere that were donating. And again, it's only, even if you're donating $5, $25, like we haven't been getting a whole lot of huge donations from like wealthy individuals. Not that we don't want that, but it's been a grassroots effort for the most part. Like, it's been a lot of people giving $25 as opposed to a bunch of people giving, $3,000, right? We were talking the other day about like how much does it take to get one Black farmer on the land and kind of get some of the supplies and tools and things that they need. And we were estimating that it's around $3,000, right, to support one Black farmer. But it's a bunch of different, donations from different people that are gonna like bring it all together. And again, that it connects us to the community and the grassroots piece of this work. Like, this is something that we're building together. Like, this is something that we're co-creating. And we are doing this because, again, we don't know if the law is gonna remedy the past discrimination that people have experienced, whether here in Detroit or otherwise, but we're coming together and pooling, some of the things that we do have, right? Like we're bringing together people so we can volunteer, we're bringing together people so that we can, or go buy beer that's supporting the Black Farm Land Fund, land donations, we're getting together all of these different pieces of ways that we need support, because the reality is that finances are not, I think Danielle said this at the beginning, it's not the only thing, right? Like it's not the only way that we can, it's an important component of the work, and it's where the work started for obvious reasons. But now that we've been doing this for a year and some change, we've seen that these are some of the other needs that surround the financial piece, right? Like in addition to purchasing land through the Detroit Land Bank, people also need the equipment and the tools. People also need support, other kinds of support. And so this is kind of like wraparound services, right? Like if you think about from, I guess, from like a medical perspective, when you have wraparound services, these are different things that are kind of tangential to the major point, but they're also essentially important, right? Like they're things that we still need. And so by continuing to like invigorate our movement and continuing to look at all of these different things that you can do to support the Black Farmer Land Fund, we hope that no one who is connected to this work and no one who this resonates with feels like they can't tap in, because there's definitely a way that you can tap in, again, even if you don't have any money. So we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We have DetroitBlackFarmer.com is our website, so you can always see what we're doing on DetroitBlackFarmer.com. And these are, you can also just share. We try between myself and Danielle, we try to like keep the social media popping and like share about what all our farms are doing. And and they're doing so many amazing things. We want to make sure that amplify those voices and amplify their work, because they're the ones that are in the trenches, really farming and growing food and having children's gardens. These are amazing things that are really revitalizing the agricultural landscape of Detroit, and that's one of the major missions of this coalition. This is the reason that we do the work that we do. And so I just I want to leave some time for questions if anybody has any, but those are some of the really awesome ways that we think. Again, so creative, if you're a creative and you want to, I have a video that I'll play at the end too. If you stick around, we did a video last year, a local artist, GMAC, Gregory McKenzie, did a really cool rap for us about the Detroit Black Farm and Land Fund, and we made like a slideshow to go with it, and we put that out. So that was a really exciting thing to do. And again, just it's great to engage, the people that also are in the community and they're connected to this work and have talents and skills that they can utilize to amplify this. And so, it's not just about doing it one way, right? Like there are a number of different ways that folks can support. And we want to hear more too. If there are other things that people want to do, other things that people want to donate. Someone reached out to me the other day about donating a pickup truck. So that's pretty exciting. We need all those kinds of things too. And so this is essential to this work. And so I really appreciate everybody being here and giving me the opportunity to talk about this. If anybody has any questions, I am happy to answer questions. And then, like I said, I do have a video that I will show at the end. I don't see any questions right now. So I just, here we go. I do. Okay. Community. Okay. Shinasi is asking, in the past, community Dia de los Muertos events in the D raised money by offering trolley tours of the city. Stopping at ofrendas and educating the wider community. I love that. And that's like, again, so, things that, we want to make sure also that, we're doing things and supporting things that, uplift the culture of the, what is the Detroit Black farmer, right? Like, what does that look like? And what are kind of like the cultural pieces to, to putting that together. So I think, thank you, Mom Shinasi. That's a really great idea. And again, not even just, because we see ourselves too as, wisdom bearers, right? I think, again, our co-founder, Tefira, was talking about, how she really feels that, her role is, she's not necessarily an elder, but she's not youth either. And so she feels it's really important to like transmit that wisdom. And that is so key, like it's not, as a mother myself too, growing our own food and teaching our babies to grow our own food is, I think, one of the most powerful things that we can do. Again, like our ancestors at the turn of the century were, they were working so hard for the opportunity to grow food on their terms, on their land, and on their time. And so now we have the choice and the opportunity to do that too. And it's so important that we continue, again, to make that intergenerational, right? In the African tradition, intergenerationality is so important. And we're all, because I mean, our ancestors in Africa were thinking about us, right? Like 7, 10, 14 generations in the future, right? And so, we don't just think about our children, we also think about, again, 7, 10, 14 generations in the future. What is that going to look like? And what are they going to think about when they think about us? Like when they think about, those of us that are here on the earth at this time, what are they going to say about the contributions that we made and the things that they still have and the things that they know about that came from us and that originated from us? And so we always want to be thinking about that. And the we want to change the intergenerational narrative, right? The intergenerational narrative has been Black farmland displacement, and we want to change that and make it for Black farmland, intergenerational Black farmland reclamation. So that is, I think, a really great place to end. I really appreciate everybody that's here, everybody that showed up and listened. We hope that we're also going to share this. If folks want to get my slides, you can. I'm sure that we can provide those for you. And just having people in the room, to talk to about this and to continue uplifting the work that we're doing is extremely meaningful to me. So this isn't just about, raising money or the fun. This is about like how important the work is that we're doing. And so thank you for being here with us and for listening to the things that we have to say about our important work. And like I said, I will leave you all with this really cool video and jam. It's a song that GMAC put together for us last year. Unless I don't see any other questions in the chat. Oh wait, I'll show you this too. I'm going to show you guys our map. So let me share my screen. Get it together, I promise. Okay. Boom. So this is what 30 farms, 30 Black farmers all around the city looks like. And so it's only gonna get bigger, it's only gonna get better. And we're so honored that people have continued to work with us, to support us, and to hear what we have to say about how important our work is. No, probably not. Let me see. People are in the chat. They're saying thanks. Yay. Okay. Is the sound on?
Shout out to the Detroit Black Farmer Land Fund. This GMAC, the Housing Act of 1934 created subsidized mortgages and awarded them to people non-black. The racist developers built a wall on 8 Mile and Birdwood to keep the all-white development zone intact. The same act created rental assistance mainly for blacks. The homeowners loan court created redlining maps to determine where they could and couldn't lend at. Underclass plan that can't defend that. Deliberately helped my kin back out 120 billion. My people saw 2% toward ownership. This government assisting on paying rent. The 30s to the 60s, the sort of mortgage monopoly undeveloped the blacks, leaving whites wealthy with property. Things have a reason in the season, it's a new day. Black Farmer Land Fund restoring justice a new way. Exploring access, restoring blackness to farming like compost. Breaking down the barriers and bringing what was far close. Black woman led and ran, raised over 50 grand in less than a month span. Got a plan, need some land to work your black hand. Self-sufficiency, abundance, we bringing it back, fam. Like
we will post more information, in particular our application for Black farmers here in Detroit who are looking to own their land that they are growing up. We're excited to hear from you and to support you in this endeavor.
Oh, I almost forgot our Cash App. It's Detroit Black Farmer. You can always Cash App.